Hello and welcome to the pod. I'm Nathan Fink.
I'm Jasmine Torres-Allen, and this is New Hampshire Family Now,
a show about building family in the Granite State. Today on the pod, we welcome Cindy Brenner, volunteer and board member of the Foster Adoptive Resource Exchange, for a conversation about creating safe spaces one child at a time. Today's show was brought to you by Service Credit Union. You go beyond for your family. That's why Service Credit Union goes beyond for you. Get more for your money, reach milestones sooner, and plan for the future you've earned. Service Credit Union will support you every step of the way to go further than you ever imagined. If you're driven to go beyond, you belong with Service Credit Union. Visit servicecu.org to start your journey today. This podcast was also brought to you by Family Support New Hampshire. Family Support New Hampshire is NH's coalition of family resource centers and family strengthening programs that exist to ensure Granite State families have access to resources so both caregivers and children can succeed, because supported families are strong families. To find a family resource center near you, visit www.fsnh.org. Hello and welcome to the podcast. We have a great show for you today, and I'm joined by guest co-host Cindy Brenner, board member of FAIR, the Foster Adoptive Resource Exchange, and past Lucy Folks Breed Family Service Award winner. Cindy, how are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm good. Just trying to keep the wheels on. Now, it's been a while since I've seen you. I think last winter when you did win the Lucy Folks Breed Award. So catch me up. How's the family? What are you working on?
Sure. We are extremely busy as always. So we are just wrapped up softball and soccer season. Okay. All four are in music lessons right now, which is pretty exciting. Right. They are on the mission to start a band any day now.
Oh my gosh. Well,
really
that'd
exciting.
Be cool.
Yeah.
So give me the ages, give me the instruments.
Sure. So Star is the oldest. She is doing piano and guitar in high school and for lessons. Dabbling in vocal a little bit, but she's a little self-conscious. Yeah. Sky is taking after her oldest sister, Luna. So she is taking on bass guitar.
Bass.
Yes. And she's so good. So it's pretty exciting to watch her. She's actually she tried out for jazz band for middle school.
Great.
So very exciting. And they're playing a Metallica song, which her dad is extremely excited about. So fun stuff. And then Chloe is my sports kid. So she is a drummer by natural association.
Oh my God.
So she is embracing that and finding the beat in every single song she hears.
All right. Now, Brian, did I hear Brian in there?
So Brian's the youngest. Right. So he is doing piano.
This is a band.
Kind of.
But you do need that front person to sing, and that's terrifying. Did you encourage them to play, or because I have this thing where I'm like, you have to do sports just because we need organization and movement. You have to do music.
So it's interesting. So obviously we have adopted two sets of siblings. Right. So the girls all have this natural musical talent. I don't know how to explain it. They just are very talented and can listen and then replay very quickly. So it just kind of evolved. And quite honestly, during COVID, we played every instrument that we could because that's what we did. So it seems silly, but on Sundays, we would have our families come over and sit in our driveway, and their kids would give concerts to their grandparents. And everybody was 6 feet apart, and it was this crazy situation. But yeah, that's kind of how it evolved.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask, parent to parent, now that they're in their teenage years or they're growing, is there anything that you're grappling with or wrestling with that you never thought you'd have to as a parent?
Social media is really tough, and really, I just feel like the access to information is challenging. So I feel like that's part of it. There's a really hard fine line between structuring what your kids are exposed to online and also not being so strict that they are missing out on what their friends are talking about or social media type, public events or things like that. So,
well, and it is a cultural phenomenon. The generation that's coming up has things. So keeping them kind of in that cultural loop, but then giving them, I think, a way to connect to you. Maybe that's it, because you can't be there beside them like you could with a television show.
Agreed.
So you got to kind of find that balance.
Definitely. And it's different too. I feel like there's different challenges with biological children versus adopted children. So sometimes social media plays into, or just access to technology could be a safety concern for some children that have been adopted from situations where they're biological families don't have the ability to use good judgment or to, keep safe boundaries versus your children. Like, you are in control of who they have contact with. And, you feel like anybody in your network is completely safe.
Exactly.
And so it's a little bit of a different challenge for us specifically. But there again, it's everywhere, like technology is crazy.
I guess I wanted to dive into this because every time there's something that our kids are doing, experiencing, I think that we kind of collide with our own parenting self on our parenting journey. And I'm starting to really appreciate the fact that, one, kids develop at their own pace, but kids also are the product largely of the experiences in which they were reared. And as you had said, you adopted 2 sets of siblings. And so I'm curious, in your rearing these children, are there things that you're finding in your parenting journey that take you back to when you were a child, where you're kind of reevaluating the way you were raised versus the way you want to raise these kids?
So I personally grew up in a small town in Vermont. And, in the day where you could be out riding your bike until the streetlights came on and then it was time to come home, right? So the thought of that with my children is terrifying, to be like, they're unattended for hours on end. Like, that seems crazy to me,
Latchkey, right?
Yeah. I mean, we just grew up like, that was like the environment that we were in, and it was safe. Like, there was no, I'm not that there wasn't any type of dangers, but you didn't hear about them and they weren't as frequent. You know what I mean? There wasn't like, people didn't talk about trafficking or about, abductions and things like that as often. And I feel like that's one of those things that you just are more aware of now. So it's like finding the balance between wanting to have your kids experience freedom and responsibility and be able to get dirty and play outside and do all the things, but also keep them safe at all costs and have like a pinpoint, there's such a huge challenge to not be a helicopter parent when you see the world around you getting smaller or bigger, depends on how you look at it.
It does, because when I think about it, I'm like, okay, so, and I don't know the answer to this. Statistically, my guess is we are likely safer than when we were then. But I think emotionally, we might not be safer because of the access to stories. Now, again, I don't know this. I only think of it in terms of, yes, I was a latchkey kid.
When you see like it's an instant, like an Amber Alert goes out and it's like an instant where people are immediately on the lookout, and there's, people are reporting things all the time. So it's interesting how that happens, because you're right. There was definitely as much activity probably going on when we were children, but you didn't hear about it as often. It wasn't as publicized as it is now. So I feel like our awareness is heightened because of that.
Yeah.
So
it might preoccupy now our thinking, which changes our behaviors as parents. Now, those are parenting choices. Now, are there other choices that when you look back at the way you were parented, are there choices where you're like, nah, I'm going to do it this way instead?
Definitely. Like, I feel like I was given a lot of extra freedoms, like the curfews and the things like that. And I didn't have a great relationship with my mom. My dad passed away when I was 12, and my mom really struggled with being able to be a single parent after he passed away from cancer. So I feel like I want to have that level of communication with my children that I didn't have. So like, my mom was kind of like, yeah, you're fine, you're safe, I'll see you tonight. Where I want to know, like, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? Who can I, like, who are your friends? Who are you? What activities are you into?
Yeah. Like, do you feel safe? Like, that's a different question.
Definitely.
That's interesting. Now, Are you finding that level of communication is producing a different awareness in your kids?
I feel like the conversations at our dinner table are very different than the conversations at a lot of dinner tables. And for various reasons. One, my husband and I are pretty transparent. We don't sugarcoat a lot of things. And the other part of it is our kids have experienced a lot of trauma and loss in their lives that many kids maybe have not experienced. Yeah. So the stuff that we talk about is different than some families, but I feel like because of that, they're able to be honest and open, and they can set their own boundaries. Like they know what's acceptable. And it's interesting to watch their like peer friendships. Like if they are in a situation where another friend at school or somebody's being a bully, I would love to say my kids will stand up and say, like, you can't treat your friends like that. And like, so I think that it's a different kind of conversation.
Yeah. Now, back to your decision then to adopt. What was it that made you say, this is what we're going to do?
So my husband and I were married for about 10 years and went through a lot of fertility struggles. We did IVF and that path. And we finally got to a point where we were both on the same page about adoption. I think I was ready a lot sooner than he was. And then he was ready. And I was kind of burnt out from the whole IVF and fertility process. And we finally were like, all right, we're ready to do this. We knew that we wanted to adopt siblings. I'm not really sure why. We both always had wanted to have large families. My mom was one of 5 siblings that were all separated when they were children. This was in the 50s. And I always knew that had a huge impact on her life. So I wanted to make sure like keeping siblings together was something that we were interested in. Which when you join the foster care community, that's like unheard of because it's like nobody wants to take siblings or nobody wants to take large groups because it's a lot.
Because it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what's the a lot of the a lot?
So, you're going from 0 kids to 2 or 0 kids to 5, like that's a lot. So, we did a lot of, everybody has like an idea of what they're going to, what kind of parent they're going to be. And I'm never going to let my kids watch TV and I'm never going to do this and blah, blah, blah. So I think that just being like, once you get there, it feels different when you're in the middle of it.
Well, to me, it's fascinating. So just hang on to that thought. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll have more with Cindy Brenner. Don't go anywhere. And many thanks to the Office of Social and Emotional Wellness, or OSEW, at the NH Department of Education for sponsoring this podcast. OSEW's mission is to advance youth social emotional wellness by collaborating with federal, state, community, and family partners to implement evidence-based, data-driven, preventative, and responsive approaches to lifelong social emotional skills for New Hampshire's students. To learn more about the Department of Education, visit www.education.nh.gov. Today's show was brought to you by Bank of New Hampshire. For 193 years, Bank of New Hampshire has put customers and communities first. With the expertise to help you realize your goals, their technology makes banking easier, and the friendly faces will make you want to visit in person. Want a bank that has your back? Bank of New Hampshire are your people. For more information, visit bnh.bank or call 1-800-832-0912. Member FDIC. Today's show was also brought to you by Northeast Delta Dental. At Northeast Delta Dental, we love to see people smile. And as the leading provider of quality dental coverage for Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, we're committed to helping entire communities smile. Whether it's through education, supporting our veterans, or giving and volunteering, we are helping make our communities even stronger. Learn more about Northeast Delta Dental at nedelta.com. We think you'll find a lot to smile about. And now back to our conversation with Cindy Brenner. Well, it's a perspective thing too. And this happened too with our biological children. So I came into the parenting thinking children are like empty vessels that I just fill up with all the good things. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have a massive role in how they develop, right? Their brain structures and things like that at an early age. But my son did come with a perspective, right? Mm-hmm. And he has a fierceness and I would say a feralness in him, which I so admire, mm-hmm. And we've come to understand that part of it is an ADHD diagnosis, which takes different kind of remedies and interventions and sensitivities. But that perspective shattered the moment he was born. I don't, maybe you had a better wraparound thought about this, but was there something that you walked into this adoption and you might have had your frames or your predilections about who they would be, and then they came in and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we got to back way up?
So part of it is like our first set of siblings were much younger. So they came to us when they were 2 and 4. So they were still really in that like formative years, like even though they had experienced a lot, like, like we got to be part of their first and got to teach them a lot of things. So you would think that adding additional children, like that we would be able to combat that or just be able to work through it a little differently. But adopting older kids is very different because they already have mindset and personality. And also like they've developed their own sense of like defense mechanisms and coping skills and things that you weren't part of. So it's a lot of like relearning and retraining and re-loving them to make sure that they're able to understand what is safe and acceptable behavior and what is safe and acceptable actions. And that takes a long time. It's a lot. Yeah. So versus like you would, your children will grow up knowing that they eat dinner at a table every single night. And sometimes children that come to your home that maybe have never experienced that really have that like they don't know how to use a fork and a spoon. They literally don't know how to sit at a table because they've never had that experience. So at 10 years old, to ask a child to sit at a table and eat dinner for a 30-minute time frame is literally like pulling teeth. So
what is the strategy then to get there? Or, and I'm posing obviously this opposite, is it question whether or not sitting at a table for 30 minutes is worth it?
We struggled so many times, my husband and I, with like fair is fair, equal, the same for everybody. Well, there are 5 different kids with 5 different personalities, and you can't parent them the same, like by age, by gender, by personality, by background. It's just so different. And like dinner time, for example. So like Chloe and Brian, they were great eaters. They were able to come to the table and like try new foods. And like that was part of our culture. And our girls had never been exposed to certain kinds of foods before. The first time we made pot roast, they were kind of like, I don't understand. Like they've never seen anything. What do I do with this? Yes. Like, why does it look like that? Why does it take, like they wouldn't even try it. Like it was not fast food or chicken tenders. So they were kind of like, I don't understand this. Right. So I feel like you have to like step back and be like, we can't, like you have to be able to shift your expectation for each child, which is so hard. Like it's so hard in the moment to like have an expectation about behavior and just like emotional age, I guess, for each kid, and then be able to figure out how do you support all of them differently.
Yeah. Well, I guess to me, this is where an organization like FAIR would come in, Foster Adoptive Resource Exchange. So tell me, what is FAIR and how then would it apply to a circumstance like this? So
FAIR is Foster Adoptive Resource Exchange. We were founded pretty close to 5 years ago at this time. So pretty exciting. Literally a group of foster parents that were sitting at a table on they used to call it Foster Parents Night Out. So like you could bring your children to an event that was hosted by an organization, and then the parents could literally just go have dinner maybe and socialize and not have to manage 1,000 children. So, and that was kind of where this organization came from, is there's a need that needs to be filled, and what can we do to support families that have not only foster children, but once the adoption process happens, a lot of the financial and even just like emotional supports go away. So trying to be able to bridge that gap a little bit and support the need. So what we get to do is we provide grants for activities so kids can we call them normalcy activities. You just said sports were really important for your kids, music, things like that. Not every family has the ability to pay for those things, quite honestly. If you are a family that has 2 or 3, foster foster children plus biological kids in your home at the same time, it just adds up.
Yeah.
So what we get to do is award grants for those activities so kids are able to still participate and feel normal. Oftentimes when children are removed from their biological families, it's because their needs are not being met on a basic level. So their needs are not being met with safety, security, food, hygiene, all of the basics, a place to live, a pillow to sleep on, those types of things. So any of those extras like soccer and music and gymnastics and, as teens, like driver's ed is so expensive. That's one of our biggest needs right now, is to be able to provide support for those things.
Yeah.
One of the other great things that FAIR gets to do is we host large scale events that are called Moments That Matter, which that's what I get to chair, which is the best part. So we get to bring the fun. So foster care is not always fun. It's really hard to travel to events and be able to provide fun activities if you have a large family or even a small family, because lots of times kids that come from trauma-based experiences have behavior issues in large groups. They might struggle in school settings. They might have health conditions that are a challenge. So we host large-scale events that are completely non-judgmental. Come as you are. Come and enjoy your day. They're usually at free to no charge at all for our families to come. So we do things like Eloquia State Park. We do field day games. We do a barbecue. We have done large-scale birthday parties where every child that attends gets to leave with a birthday gift. We also host really large-scale gift-giving events for parents for the holiday season. So parents get to come in and shop free of charge and provide an amazing Christmas for their children.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah. And that's important because these kids and families get to have support for things that are out of reach on a basic level.
Right. Including, like you said, music. Can you tell me about Luna's Fun?
I sure can. So Luna is our adopted daughter. She passed away from suicide at the age of 14 in 2021. Luna was so passionate about music. It was part of her being from day one. And she had never had the opportunity to take actual lessons or be able to participate in music programs at school. So when she came to us, that was like our priority. We knew if we're ever going to be able to connect with her, we had to do it through music. So we started with piano, and then it was like she was a sponge. So she would play any instrument that she could pick up. So guitar, bass guitar, piano, vocals, all of it.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing kid. So Luna's Legacy Fund was created when she passed as a way to provide specific grants and activities for kids who had an interest in music or theater arts. So specifically, we've purchased instruments. We have donated to camps to heighten their music programs. Camp Kita is located in Maine, and that is for youth that have had family members, they're survivors of suicide in their families. And we've also they have a new facility that they're building. We're going to create a space that will be Luna's Nook in the music department.
Is there a website we can go to?
Yeah. So it's fairenh.org. So FARENH.org. And you can find out all of our information on there. So what we do, what events we host, how you can volunteer. We do lots of other events throughout the year as well. So yeah, check it out.
So last bit, any advice for individuals thinking about fostering?
I feel like it's not just about opening your heart. It's about opening your mind. So one of the biggest things is to be open-minded and understand that nurture versus nature is a really big thing for children. So being able to provide a safe space and also give them supports by role modeling positive environments goes so far.
And how about encouragement? Any encouragement?
Yeah, I feel like just stick with it. Like find your people. One of the biggest things that has been so successful for the foster parents and continue to relicense every 2 years is that they find a support group or find their people and find their resources. There's so many resources out there. Obviously, the child services division organizations are so overburdened right now with the number of cases, and caseworkers just don't add up, that finding your people and, support services within your community and your network is going to be so important.
After everything you've told me, being a parent, an adoptive parent, what you're doing day in and day out, I think that's about the strongest thing that I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
This podcast was brought to you by Nixon Peabody, who delivers exceptional legal services for clients in the community by combining high performance, an entrepreneurial spirit, deep engagement, and an unwavering commitment to a culture of collaboration, diversity, and humanity. Nixon Peabody works with universities, hospitals, and nonprofits of every size to maximize impact. For more information, visit nixonpeabody.com. Today's show was brought to you by the Couch Family Foundation. As an organization that supports healthy children, strong families, and vibrant communities, the Couch Family Foundation is proud to sponsor the 12th Annual Strengthening Families Summit. The Couch Family Foundation is working with partners like New Hampshire Children's Trust to ensure that all New Hampshire children from birth to age 5 have access to equitable, high-quality, affordable early care and education. For more information, visit couchfoundation.org. New Hampshire Family Now is listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or ask your smart speaker to play New Hampshire Family Now.